about the bedrock of American music, which is pretty much popular music around the world. I mean, America is the birthplace for a lot of the music that we listen to now. I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, a good friend of mine, who's very knowledgeable on matters of music. And he said to me, who do you think are the most influential music artists? I've got some Duke Ellington playing in the background, I hope it's not too loud. And I said to him, Louis Armstrong and James Brown. He was like, yeah, he gets that. But he was amazed, borderline offended that I didn't include the Beatles. We can get to the Beatles in a bit, but it got me thinking, and I just thought I'd bring it up today, my views on that. With regard to Louis Armstrong, let's talk about Louis Armstrong for a second. A lot of what you listen to now, 75 to 80% of what you listen to now, I'll make a bold statement, 75 to 80% of what you listen to now has in its roots somewhere the essence or the ghost of Louis Armstrong. What Louis Armstrong did is that he injected his personality into the music. People weren't really doing that before, right? You had classical music, you had jazz, people playing jazz. I mean, they're bringing their own nuances to jazz, of course. But you had people singing, like when you see the old films with the barbershop singers, oh, Mary, and so on and so forth. That's how people were singing. Louis Armstrong came along, almost single-handedly just changed the landscape of music. He just inflicted his personality. And if you listen to Louis Armstrong, he's not really a conventional singer, right? He's got his own style. He didn't care. He just inflicted that into his recordings and also transferred that into the trumpet. So it was almost like two for the price of one. He was an incredible trumpet player. When you heard that tone, you just knew it was Louis Armstrong. As Gang started saying that incredible recording of his jazz thing, when Satchmo blew, the audience knew. He had that tone and he had that way of singing. I'm not going to try and impersonate Louis Armstrong. I do an impersonation of Louis Armstrong, but I won't do it now because it will be a sidetrack. But he had his own way of vocalizing, which wasn't in the traditional format, which paved the way for pretty much everything you hear now. The singers singing in their own style, bringing their own unique personality to a recording. Louis pretty much started that. He was an ambassador for jazz, traveled around the world spreading the word of jazz in a time where black people were going through hell. But here was a man filled with love and forgiveness. These are great artists. He changed the landscape of music and he needs to be celebrated more. I went to the Louis Armstrong house for my birthday a few months ago. I was almost embarrassed because the Louis Armstrong house is like a 10-minute cab ride from where we live. I went there. And for some reason I thought his house was in New Orleans when I discovered it's 10 minutes away from where I live. I went there, it was an incredible experience. I recommend anybody to go. It's the Louis Armstrong Museum, it's in Queens. This isn't a plug, they're not paying me or anything, it just came across my mind. And it was really emotional to be in the house where this great artist lived and crafted some of his work, to be in the bedroom where he passed away. Humbling. So many stories to do with his time there, but you know, I don't want to digress and go off point. So my other artist I referenced was James Brown. James Brown, I mean, the most influential artist of all time. Like, the Rolling Stones got their shtick from him. Prince got a lot of his, I wouldn't say shtick, his essence from James Brown. Michael Jackson has openly said his biggest influence is James Brown. Hip hop, like almost like the bedrock of hip hop was built on James Brown samples. Like, this is a man who single-handedly created funk, then had his own subgenre of funk within that genre of funk that he created. Amazing. This guy had an incredible run with the Flames in the 60s, right? I think it's the Flames, right? Yeah, with the Flames in the 60s. And when the band disbanded in the 70s, he created a new, even better band and kept it going and got even better. James' library is so vast and so wide, and it has so much depth. There's certain YouTubers who go into music in depth. I don't know if I'm that kind of guy. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm just skirting the edges, but I'll just point it out there and you can do the research. But James Brown is easily the most influential artist of the past, well, him and Louis Armstrong, of the past 100, let's say in the history of recorded music. Those two. I'm listening to Duke Ellington in the background. Duke Ellington is definitely an influential artist too, but that might be a subject for another vlog, I guess. With regard to the Beatles, I love the Beatles. An incredible amount of quality music in a short period of time. In a 10 to 12 year period, they just crafted so many timeless songs, and they morphed from kind of the Backstreet Boys to Radiohead to Nirvana. I get the, this is actually an X-Ray Specs t-shirt, but I've worn it so much you can't even tell that's X-Ray Specs under there. But anyway, you may not know who X-Ray Specs are, but they were a legendary London punk band. Right, anyway. Yeah, so the Beatles, incredible amount of music in a short period of time. They're one of the most influential groups in the sense that they showed the industry how much money could be made. They made so much money for the industry and sold so many records, they changed the landscape. And what's incredible about the Beatles is that the music stands up today. As I mentioned, it's of such high quality that it's not like, usually you get bands that sell a lot of records, right, and do well, but then you look back on it and be like, yeah, it was a 60s thing. No, this music is timeless. But I cannot include the Beatles in my most influential artists because they got it from somewhere, right? They got it from Ray Charles, originally I'm talking. They got it from Ray Charles, from the Isley Brothers. They pillaged black music like a lot of artists do, a lot of white artists do, and created and took that, and because of the fact that they were white, they were able to take it to another level. But once again, not taking anything away from the Beatles, a great band, but they got it from somewhere. I'm talking about the essence of it. When you talk about the most influential artists, you have to go to the root. Because the root of everything you listen to comes from black music, primarily the blues and the suffering of black people. That's where it comes from. So, I'm not saying I cannot include white artists. I can do, like, I might do a top 10 most influential white artists because I listen to almost just as much quote-unquote white music as black music. I'm just dealing with the essence and I'm dealing with the truth. And I just had that on my mind. I was just thinking about Louis Armstrong. I've got a Louis Armstrong picture on my fridge and it got me thinking about him. And thinking about that conversation I had with my mate, and for some reason I thought I'd get on YouTube and discuss it. So I hope you're well. I hope you're safe out there. You know, I go by the name of C.Live of Good Find Records, and I don't know, I'm signing out. Just had some things on my mind. Appreciate you tuning in, and have a blessed day. Hey, love.